everyone, myself Dr. M. Lakshmi Prasad, working as an Associate Professor in the Department of Data Science in Institute of Aeronautical Engineering, Hyderabad. In this video, I'm going to discuss about sampling. So what should be sampling process and what are different kinds of sampling. So which under the concept of principles of data science. So sampling is a process of selecting observations to provide an adequate description and inferences to the population. Okay, so sampling is nothing but a process of selecting the observations, which is going to provide an adequate description and inferences to the population. So sampling is nothing but it is the unit that is going to be selected from the population and represents the whole population, and the main purpose is to draw the inference. So why sampling? So sampling is the one of the unit which is going to be used to make the observations among the sample. So according to our need, or can able to make an inference to the population as well. And sampling frame, so what should be the sampling frame is nothing but the list of population from which the sampling is chosen. Okay, so the list of population from which the sampling is chosen nothing but sampling frame here. So consider this is the population. Okay, so in this population I have a sample like this. That means this is the frame, and I'm going to draw some particular portion of this population, so that thing will be considered as a sample here. Okay, so the sample is going to be some part of the population, or I can able to take this is also considered as a sample of this population. Okay, so the sampling is the process of selecting the observations, is nothing but a sample, which is going to provide an adequate description and inferences to the population. So sampling is nothing but a unit that is going to be selected from the population, which is going to represent the whole population as well. So the main purpose of this sampling is to draw the inference. So the sampling frame, which is nothing but the list of population from which the sampling is chosen. So see the sampling, so how it will be and how can you able to extract it. Suppose we are having the population like this, so in that you can extract some particular part, so that should be the sampling frame. This frame is going to be extract some part of it, so that thing will be considered as a sample here, and this sample is going to make the reference or inference of this population. Okay, so what you actually observe in the data is nothing but a sample. So what you want to talk about, that should be the population. Okay, so the population means what you want to talk about is nothing but a population. And okay, and so what actually observe in the data, so that is nothing but a sample. So whether the population is homogeneous or heterogeneous, we have to identify. So homogeneous sampling, so that means we can able to only extract a single part, a homogeneous part of the population will be considered as a homogeneous sample. So if the population is heterogeneous, so we can able to do that. So heterogeneous means we can able to extract some more than one unit of observation or one unit of the thing what you can able to extract. So over here we're going to have so many people. So if I'm going to extract some particular part of people like Africans, like Americans, like Indians, like that. So okay, then it should be a part of heterogeneous. So sampling design process. So sampling design process is nothing but, so first what are the steps you have to be see in designing the sampling process. So for that mm, initially define the population. This is the first step what you have to do. So define the process, determine the sampling frame here. So determine the sampling frame. So how can I do that? So extract some part of it. Then determine what kind of procedure you can able to apply on that sampling frame. So there may be different types of sampling procedures available, uh, which may be of two categories like uh, probability sampling and non-probability sampling. So what are the some of the types of this probability sampling? Simple random sampling, stratified sampling, cluster sampling, systematic sampling, and multi-stage. When it comes to this non-probability sampling, so here you can able to see convenient judgmental quota and then snowball. So these are the some of the non-probability sampling. So once you choose some any particular prime kind of sampling, so first you have to be see that so whether it should be comes under probability or non-probability. So probability means so you can able to take any of this. The non-probability means you have to consider this. Then once you choose that what kind of sampling we are doing here, so determine the appropriate sampling size and then execute that sampling design. So these are the some of the sampling design process. Probability sampling, see one by one. Simple random sampling. So all subsets of frames are going to be given an equal probability that so that should be the simple random sample and it should be that some example is that random number generators. So see here the list of names are available. So simple random sampling. So I can able to say check it out only this part of this that should be the sampling frame. So in this sampling frame, I am going to generate some random numbers. So initially I am selecting 29, 40. So this is the first one, the second one, this is the third one, the fourth one, and this should be the fifth one like this. Like this, I can able to extract one by one sampling design process here. So like this will have to be done. So simple random sampling. So all subsets of frame given an equal probability. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of the sampling here? So random advantage may be minimum knowledge of population is needed and easy to analyze the data. So for this implementing this simple random sampling, so there is no need of that much of knowledge is required for implementing the sampling. Okay, and then you can also easily analyze the data. When it comes to disadvantages, so low frequency of use. So even though it is very easy technique, so but many of them should be low frequency of using techniques is to be done. So that is one of the disadvantage of that. And does not use researchers' expertise. So here the researcher expertise is not going to be considered. So that should be the one of the way of using this technique. And larger risk of random error. So there may be a chance of getting errors. So one of the type of error should be that random error. So these are the some of the advantages and disadvantages of this random sampling. So stratified random sampling. So here what I'm going to do that. So here the population is going to be divided into two or more groups, what we call it as a strata. And the subsamples are randomly selected from each strata. Okay, subsamples are going to be randomly selected from each strata. That means that so here this is the population. So from this let it be a list of kinds they are mentioning here, and what is that some part of this population, right? So that thing will be considered as a strata. So here I am considering both Africans to Americans and Hispanic Americans and Russians. So this and all will be called as the strata here. Okay. So the stratified sampling means that here the population is going to be divided into multiple parts. So where each part is going to be considered as called strata. Okay, so example, so list of clients we are having. So in this list of clients, I want to segregate that what Americans, Africans, and Hispanic Americans I want to segregate out. So there should be the stratified random sampling. So when it comes to advantages and disadvantages of this, so here this technique going to be assures the representation of all groups in sample population, and the characteristics of each stratum can be estimated and comparison made. Okay, so stratified sampling, uh, which is going to make the representation of all groups in the same population, and the characteristics of stratum can easily estimated and comparison should all be made. So comparison. So comparison is can easily done through the sample. So when it comes to disadvantages, so here it requires an accurate information on the properties of each stratum. So without properties of each stratum, so it is difficult to make this comparison. So stratified less costly to prepare since we're going to be extract the properties of each stratum. So it may be a time taking process and some kind of research expertise is going to be required. Okay, so for this we have to be very careful. And next one is cluster sampling. So here cluster means that so the population is going to be divided into subgroups like families, and simple random sample can also be taken from each cluster. So what means that? So this list of houses among that. So I'm taking one section, and this is another kind of section, and this is the section 4 houses. Sorry, and this should be the section 5 houses. So how can I able to do that? So the population divided into several groups. Okay, so some here the houses which are going to be in red color, I'm going to make it as a cluster. Which the 3 section I'm doing that. So in this one I'm also grouping as one cluster here. So since based on the properties of this means based on the red color houses I'm doing that. Or I can also do that. So what are the houses that are near to river? So let it be this. So also I can able to make it as one cluster. And apart from that I can able to. So the houses which are near to trees I can able to do this like this. Like this I can able to make different kinds of clusters here. So what should be the cluster sampling? So advantages is that so you can easily estimate the characteristics of both the cluster and population. So with this sampling, I can able to understand that. So what is the characteristic of that cluster and then population? So when it comes to disadvantage, so the cost may be reach an element or it should be very high, and each state in the cluster sampling introduces what we call as sampling error. Since more stages are there, so there may be a chance of getting more errors. So making the characteristics and estimating the characteristics should be easy, but so doing that implementation should be very high, and sampling error should also be very high. And next one, systematic random sampling. So what should be systematic random sampling? So it order all the units in the sampling frame. Okay, systematic random sampling means so which is going to be all the units are going to be arranged in a one kind of order, right? So that should be the systematic random sampling. So there should be some sampling interval is going to be done. Suppose here the list of and persons are available. So in this, what I'm going to do that is I can able to add. So this blue color person, again I can within the interval of two difference. I'm adding under this within the two intervals. So this interval should be equally done. Systematic random sampling. So advantages. So moderate cost and simple to draw sample and easy to verify. And disadvantages means periodic automation. So systematic random sampling means moderate cost, moderate usage, and simple to draw example, easy to verify, and periodic ordering required. Okay. The next one is that multi-stage sampling. So what should be multi-stage sampling? So here this kind of sampling is going to be carried out in multiple stages using smaller sampling units at each stage. Should be like this. So here I'm going to group some clusters. So within the clusters, I'm again further divided into three more clusters. If I'm going to construct this cluster tree, I'm going to divide into four more clusters like this. Okay, multi-stage means we're unable to split the clusters into further divided into number of clusters. So previously what I did, so I'm going to choose only some cluster of the different sections, but here within the section itself I can able to group it. So this is one cluster. Under the section 2 I'm going. So this under cluster and I can able to like this under cluster like this. So that should be the multi-stage sampling. So it should be carried out into stages and smaller and smaller units at each stage should be constructed. So what should be the advantages of this one? So it should be more accurate and more effective since we are going to be dividing the clusters in more number of clusters. So based on the characteristics, so it should be more accurate and more effective. So disadvantages, so it should be the costly and each stage in sampling introduces the sampling error. So more stages they are and there more error that tends to be. Okay, so the disadvantage automatically since we are doing so many number of samples clusters, so this should be very costly one. So very research expertise is going to be more here. Without doing that, you can able to implement or you can able to divide the sampling into number of samples. And each stage in sampling introduces sampling error, and the more errors are going to be trends to be that should be also get. So since we're going to make so many number of clusters, so what will happen? There may be a chance of getting errors. So what are the different kinds of errors I can able to cover in next video? Okay, so that should be about sampling process and different types of sampling design. So what are the steps you have to be considered? So sampling is nothing but a process of selecting the observations which is going to make inferences to the population, and the sample is going to be selected from the population and which is also going to make inference to population. And sampling is a one kind of process which is going to make different types of type samplings what are going to be considered if I'm going to consider one sampling. So after taking this population, so I have to consider sampling frame. From that only I can able to extract the sample, and which will also automatically the sample refers to is what kind of population it is. So normally the population will be 2 times 5 homogeneous. So extracting only one, and more than one should be heterogeneous. So sampling design process. So first of all, we have to be define the population. determine the sampling frame, and then determine the sampling procedure, what kind of that. And some of it may be simple random sampling, cluster sampling, stratified, systematic, and multi-stage. A non-probability sampling means it should be convenient, judgmental, quota, snowball sampling. So once you have to choose that, then apply this appropriate technique on that kind of sampling. Probability sampling, so simple random sampling, so which is going to be a simple thing, and what advantage should be minimum knowledge is required, easy to analyze data, but low frequency of using that. So since I am not going to be adapt the recent expertise here, and stratified random sampling, which is going to be divided into two or more groups, what we call as strata, and here the advantage should be which is going to be representation of groups in this population, and the characteristics of each stratum can be easily estimated, and comparison can also be made done easily. And disadvantages, so it should able to require appropriate information in each stratum, and stratified is costly to get. And cluster sampling, here the population is going to be divided into more number of clusters. So from that each random sample can able to apply that. So advantages may be it should be easily estimate the characteristics of both cluster and population as well. And disadvantages could also be in the cost should be very high since I have to make this cluster, and something else should also be one disadvantage of this cluster sampling. And systematic sampling, where you have to follow the particular order of arranging that samples. Okay, that should be systematic random sampling. So when it comes to previous sampling techniques, so it should be moderate cost, simple to draw, easily verified. And multi-stage sampling is another kind of the thing where you can able to divide the clusters into more number of clusters, and where you can able to very lot of research knowledge is required to make the grouping into small number of clusters, so that what will happen automatically say this sampling which should be more effective and then more accurate also. And comes to disadvantages, so it should be very costly, and some poor number of errors should also be occurring. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.